from the heart of the nation's capital. This week, with ABC News Chief Washington Correspondent George Stephanopoulos, live from the Newseum on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Hello again. Congress has gone home for their July 4th break, and they'd better rest up. It's shaping up to be the busiest summer in a generation. Healthcare, energy, the Supreme Court, and the economy. And for the debate on where things stand right now, we're going to begin this morning with the President's Senior Advisor, David Axelrod. Welcome back.
Thanks, George. Good to be here.
Let's begin with that vote Friday night in the House. This vote on climate change legislation, very close, 219 to 212. Democrats say it's a major step forward for energy independence, to create green jobs, to control global warming. But the Republicans are saying it's going to cost Americans jobs, going to send jobs overseas, and most important, they say it is a huge tax. And on that, they have some backup from one of the president's supporters, Warren Buffett. Take a look.
I think if you get into the way it was written, it's a huge tax, and there's no sense calling it anything else. I mean, it is a tax, and it's a fairly regressive tax.
How do you answer that? Republicans say this is the defining vote of 2008. They're going to use that in the 2010 elections.
Well, you know, it's interesting. We're trying to solve a problem that's languished for decades, the problem of energy that has bedeviled us for a long time, and they're talking about how they can use it as an issue in action as somehow a strategy, and that's not a strategy. As for the tax issue, you know, I have a high regard for Warren Buffett, and the president does as well. I think the Congressional Budget Office addressed this issue, and their conclusion was the way the bill was written, the impact on the average American will be negligible over time, and I think it was
about
written for that reason.
$150 a year.
In 2020, and for lower income people, it actually will be a net gain because they'll get some help with their energy bills. So I think this is a phony issue, and the real issue is what is the Republican strategy for creating jobs? This bill, actually, they call it a job killer. It'll create millions of green jobs, the jobs of the future. We've lost millions of jobs in the recession that began last year and continues. What is their strategy for that? What is their strategy for reducing our dependence on foreign oil? And how are we going to deal with this issue of carbon pollution that threatens people's health and the planet?
As you know, you're also facing some resistance from Democrats, though, in the Senate on this bill as well. Senators like Claire McCaskill saying they're going to need some major changes. And I'm trying to get into the issue of legislative strategy a little bit. The president's also pushing very hard on health care reform. He said he wants the Senate to act on this energy bill as well. Does he want them to take it up right away or wait until after they finish considering health care in the fall?
Well, I think this energy bill will probably be dealt with in the Senate in the fall.
So after health care? Health
care, I think, will be the first thing on the agenda. Both the Senate and the House are well down the road on that. But, George, understand that both these issues, energy and health care, have languished for a long time. And the president believes that we have to deal with these issues in order to build a stronger foundation for our economy in the future. And so he is taking the long view about how we get our economy moving, not just in the short term, but the long term. And he's asking Congress to join with him in this
Part of
effort.
dealing with that, especially on health care, is figuring out where the revenues are going to come from. And, you know, a lot of talk about taxes in the House and the Senate as well. And I want to show our viewers something the president said during the campaign back in September.
I can make a firm pledge. Under my plan, no family making less than $250,000 a year will see any form of tax increase. Not your income tax, not your payroll tax, not your capital gains taxes, not any of your taxes.
Not any of your taxes, a firm pledge. Does that mean the president will veto any health care bill that includes a tax increase on people earning less than $250,000 a year?
Well, first of all, George, let's make a few points. The president has said whatever is done has to not add to the deficit. So that's one of the prerequisites for this bill. We've got issues with our budget. Everybody is aware of it. We don't want to add to our deficit. So this is going to have to be paid for. Two-thirds of the expense of it under the president's plan and proposal would be done by transferring money within the health care system from Medicare on wasteful spending, giveaways to insurance and drug companies, and so on. And so we're talking about the final third. He has proposed a plan that would be in keeping with the promise that he made to cap deductions for the wealthiest Americans on their taxes. He still believes that's the way to go, and he has made a strong case to the House
But he
and
also
the Senate
said this
on it.
week he was open to compromise on this, and as you know, the Senate is looking especially at this issue of capping the deductions for health care that employers and employees now get. That would be an tax increase for many families earning under $250,000, but the president said he was open to it, so that means that the tax pledge he made back in September is no longer operative?
Well, George, first of all, there are a lot of different formulations of that plan. The president has said in the past that he doesn't believe taxing health care benefits at any level is necessarily the best way to go here. He still believes that, but there are a number of formulations, and we'll wait and see. The important thing at this point is to keep the process moving, to keep people at the table, to keep the discussions going. We've gotten a long way down the road, and we want to finish that journey.
But if you're open to tax increases for people under $250,000, that means that the pledge he made last September in Dover is no longer operative.
George, I think the president's made clear the way he feels this should be funded, and that certainly is consistent with what he said during the campaign.
But he's not drawing a line in the sand. He said that.
Well, you know what? One of the problems we've had in this town is that people draw lines in the sand and they stop talking to each other, and you don't get anything done. That's not the way the president approaches this. He is very cognizant of protecting people, middle-class people, hardworking people who are trying to get along in a very difficult economy, and he will continue to represent them in these talks. But they're also dealing with punishing health care costs, and that's something that we have to deal with. One
of the Republicans who is both drawing lines in the sand and still talking is our next guest, Charles Grassley of Iowa, and he's made it very, very clear what he believes has to be in a plan. One of the things he said is absolutely no public health insurance plan in the bill. The president has said he has made a very strong case for that this week. And Senator Grassley has also said that we're probably going to have to have some taxation of benefits. And I guess what I'm trying to get at, is that a price that the president is willing to pay? I know you're saying that the president has laid out his preferences, but what price is he willing to pay to get Republican votes, to get a bipartisan bill?
Well, George, first of all, the bill will be bipartisan by definition. Just this week, the Senate Health Committee, Senator Dodd has done a spectacular job in moving this along, and the Senate Health Committee accepted 82 Republican amendments. Republican ideas are going to be included in this package. We hope it'll come with Republican votes as well, but the important thing is that we solve this problem, that we begin to move forward on health care reform.
And the Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel, has made the same point you just made. That seems to be the new White House definition of bipartisanship. It's a bipartisan bill. If there are some ideas that have been advocated by Republicans, even if Republicans don't vote for the bill in the end, Senator Grassley says no way. It is not bipartisanship, either if you include just the Republican ideas but not Republican votes, or even if you simply get 6 or 7 Republican votes. He says that's not true, durable bipartisanship. That's not the road he's going to go down.
Look, I don't think we should get consumed by process at a time when healthcare costs are increasing they've doubled in this decade. Out-of-pocket costs for people on healthcare up 32%, punishing families, businesses. Ultimately will bring the federal budget down. We have to act. We can't afford to get ensnared in these kind of Washington discussions. We got to deal with the issue that the American people are confronting.
And the American people are also confronting the issue of the economy. That is their number one issue. And some of your critics say the president has gone off course a little bit, has lost his focus on the economy. We had a new ABC Washington Post poll this week that had some fairly revealing numbers. Number one, it showed on the stimulus package, the support for people who felt the stimulus package was helping the economy, 59% in April, down a little bit to 52% now. Whether the country's going in the right direction, hit 50% in April, had been skyrocketing since the election, but for the first time started to slip back. How concerned are you by this, and how much are you worried about the fact that people don't believe that the president's plans are starting to lose faith that the president's plans are actually helping the economy?
George, we lived through several years in which we were confronted with poll numbers that said we were 30 points behind in the race for the presidency. I confront a lot of doomsday questions from people less smart than you in this town. And, we take the long view on this. Look, when the president signed the stimulus package, the economic recovery package, he said it's going to take a while for this to work, and we're going to go through some rough times, and unemployment's going to go up. and we have to work
But
our
the
way
money's
through
not
this.
getting
So
out as fast
none
as
of
you had
this
hoped,
is
is
none
it?
of this surprising, huh?
The money's not going out as fast as you had hoped, is it?
Well, I think we would like the money to go out faster in some instances, but a lot has been accomplished, and that shouldn't be diminished. There are 4,000 to 5,000 road projects going on in this country right now that would not have gone on. There are energy projects going on in this country right now, and homes being retrofitted to be energy efficient that would not have happened. There are policemen and firefighters and teachers who are still on the job today because of that package. So I think it's done an awful lot of good. The fact is that we're in the teeth of one of the worst recessions that we've had since the Great Depression, perhaps the worst, and we're going to have to work our way through that. And I think the American people are understand that at some level, and so we're not sitting there. The numbers we're worried about are not poll numbers. It's how many people can we get back to work? How do we get this economy moving again in the long run? And mostly, how do we build a solid foundation so we're not in this bubble and burst kind of economy that we've seen over the last decade that leaves both our country and our families and businesses in jeopardy?
Some economists look at that, including Paul Krugman, who's going to be on the show later in the program. He says you're looking at 10% unemployment coming in September. That's going to necessitate a second stimulus package. Is that still on the table for the president right now? And what would that mean for your other plans on energy and health care?
Well, first of all, I don't want to prejudge that at all. You know, as you said earlier, there's still most of the stimulus money, the economic recovery money, is yet to be spent. Let's see what impact that has. I'm not going to make any judgment as to whether we need more. We have confidence that the things we're doing are going to help, but we've said repeatedly it's going to take time, and it will take time. It took years to get into the mess we're in. It's not going to take months to get out of it.
Let me turn to the crisis in Iran. The crackdown appears to be working for now. The streets have gone quiet, a huge security presence in the streets. Mir Hossein Mousavi, the chief opposition leader, has not called for new protests. And President Ahmadinejad is striking back at President Obama and the comments that President Obama made on Friday. He has said he's called on the United States to stop meddling. And then he's gone on and said, without a doubt, Iran's new government will have a more decisive and firmer approach toward the West. This time, the Iranian nation's reply will be harsh and more decisive to make the West regret its meddlesome stance. It does appear that the prospects for engagement are diminishing, that Iran is taking a harder line.
Well, first of all, you know, let's be clear that we didn't meddle in the election in Iran. The dispute in Iran is between the leadership in Iran and their own people, and plainly, Mr. Ahmadinejad thinks that by fingering the United States, that he can create a political diversion. So, you know, I'm not going to entertain his bloviations that are politically motivated.
That's entertaining them.
It's just an opportunity to say bloviation. No, I'm not. The point is this. We are going to continue to work through the P5, through a multilateral group of nations that are engaging Iran. And they have to make a decision, George, whether they want to further isolate themselves in every way from the community of nations, or whether they're going to embrace this. Now, understand that, and whatever Mr. Ahmadinejad says, everyone understands that in Iran, he is not the person who makes decisions on foreign policy, on defense policy. So this is this is political theater.
But the invitation is still open. If the Iranians want to come to Paris and sit down with the United States and the Europeans on the nuclear program, that invitation is still open.
Well, yes, and understand, you say it's an invitation. It is not a reward. We're not looking to reward Iran. We're looking to the nations of the P5, the P5+1. They want to sit down and talk to the Iranians and offer them two paths.
But I was talking,
and one is, it brings them back into the community of nations, and the other has some very stark consequences.
Final question. I was talking to an ambassador from the region this week who said, now, if you sit down with the Iranians after everything we've seen in the last couple of weeks, you're going to be crushing the hopes of the young people in Iran and across the region who listened hard to the president's Cairo speech and thought he was striking out in a new direction.
I think the president's sense of solicitude with those young people has been very, very clear, and we're very mindful of that. we're also mindful of the fact that the nuclear weapons in Iran and the nuclearization of that whole region is a threat to that country, all countries in the region, and the world. And we have to address that. We can't let that lie.
David Axelrod, thanks very much.
Good to be with you.
Good to see you, sir. Okay.